It occurred to me as I was revamping this course that I spent a lot of time telling students how they should study, and realizing that when I first started taking college courses, I had no idea how to study. Nobody ever taught me. High school was just pretty easy for me, and when I got to college, I had a whole semester of, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I wanted to create a whole module on good study habits. Now, I know everybody's different, and I know that people learn and study differently, but these are generally good tips that will apply to almost all of you, even if you deceive yourself into thinking otherwise. I want to give you 3 really good study habits. I want to talk to you a little bit about reading, and then give you some tips for improving your memory as well, which I think all of us could use. Maybe this is your first college course, maybe it's not, but I think all of us can benefit from these. I take courses to improve my learning, even though I have a master's and have a career, and I still use these and find them very helpful. So here we go, 3 pretty solid study tips. One is to set up a schedule for studying. I used to be the most epic procrastinator in college. I would just say, I'll do that tomorrow, and then sometimes the night before, sometimes several hours in the morning before class, I would do things, and I wouldn't do them as well as I could have. Not only that, but I stressed about them the whole week. So just figure out when you will do it and kind of stick to a schedule if you can. Obviously, some of you are very, very busy, which is why you need to do that even more. I'm a pretty big scheduler these days. I like to know what time I'm doing everything. And it really is an effective strategy for helping you stay on track. The next is to find a place to study where you can concentrate. Again, obviously, some of you may not have a place like that. If you're taking this online, maybe you're doing that because you are at home with children, or you're working almost all the time. So again, you might not have the best place to study, but find the best that you can. Try to find a quiet spot. Try to find a place where there aren't a lot of people around. Try to find a place where you're not easily distracted. I used to convince my parents that I studied best with TV and music. And what I meant was that studying was less miserable when I was doing those things. But eventually I figured out that when I'm focusing on something is when I have the easiest time learning it. If I'm multitasking, I might think I'm doing a good job, but I'm probably not. I'm probably not going to retain as much as I would if I just focused on it for even half the time. Finally, reward your studying. I'm actually pretty good at this. I love to reward myself. So when you schedule that time, when you study for a test, or when you do some kind of homework, reward yourself. Maybe it's through a treat, maybe it's through a TV show, or you're doing something active outside. Just have some way to reinforce the good behaviors that you're doing. I like to get some ice cream and watch an episode of Glee and download music. That's how I reward myself, and it tends to motivate me pretty well. So don't reward yourself with what I do. Find things that are rewarding to you. Next learning outcome in this module is to talk about reading. I used to think reading was just something that we did, and we do it by moving our head side by side, moving our eyes, turning pages. And if that's all you're doing, you're not really reading. I used to do that so much. I used to go through several pages and have this realization that I have no idea what I just read. And if that's what you're doing, you're honestly wasting your time. It's not like Harry Potter, where the words just kind of magically go in your eyes and you figure out how to use them. You've got to make them meaningful, and you got to put them into your brain in a way that you'll remember. So I'm going to read this straight out of this textbook because it's such a great statement. The keys to improving reading comprehension are to preview reading assignments section by section, work hard to actively process the meaning of the information, strive to identify the key ideas of each paragraph, and carefully review those key ideas after each section. So again, look at it, see what you're going to be learning. That helps you kind of place things as you go through it. Think about the meaning. How does this relate to your life? What do you think you'll need to take away from that? Highlight effectively. Don't just highlight everything. I've seen some of my students' books, and it's real pretty. It looks like a rainbow. But when you highlight everything, nothing matters. That's a little deep. You should really only highlight the most important things. You've got to do that carefully, because if you read something once and you highlight, and then you just go back and look what you highlighted, if you did not highlight effectively, again, you're wasting your time. So take some time to think about the meaning, what matters most, and then highlight those ideas, and then review them. Practice with that. That's really the best way to read. Again, it took me a long time to figure all that out, so hopefully this module will help you do it much quicker than I did. Last learning outcome here is applying memory principles. This stuff's great not just for classes, but these tips have helped me remember lots of things, from people's names to things at the grocery store, to important things that other people will kill me if I forget. So again, hopefully you find these 5 tips very useful. The first is to practice, to study. You know, a lot of times I'll give a lecture or I'll show a video and a student will come up and say, wow, that was so great. I know I don't even have to study that again. I don't care how entertaining I was. Hopefully I was entertaining. But even if I'm just fantastic and you're really interested, it doesn't mean that information's immediately going to go to your memory. Think about the last great movie you watched. I just watched, what's the last great movie I watched? Yikes. Gosh, I don't even remember. That's kind of sad. Wait for it. I'll get to it. Wow. See, I can't remember because clearly it wasn't that memorable. Let me talk about a movie that I absolutely love. I love when I prove my point accidentally. I haven't seen anything that memorable, so I couldn't even tell you. A movie that I absolutely love is Batman Returns, the old cheesy 90s version with Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Fantastic. I have seen that movie over 100 times, but if I'm trying to give you a synopsis or a summary of that movie, probably would take me 5 to 10 minutes. So even though I've seen it over and over again, I'm still condensing it and only getting a tiny piece. If you've only seen a movie once, or you've only read something once, you're not going to remember the vast majority of it. So practice makes perfect. That was a very interesting example, but hopefully it made my point. All right, use distributed practice. What does this mean? Well, this means don't just cram everything all together at once. Your brain gets tired, your eyes get tired, your memory gets tired. So if you're just trying to do all the modules at one time or several at a time, you're not going to retain it in the same way as if you did one, took a break, came back, reviewed something else. The more you space it, the more you break it up, the better you're going to be with it. Next, organize information. This always came easy to me. I've always loved organizing things, probably to a fault. My CDs are alphabetized by genre, but that's always helped me. Some people, looked at how well I did in high school and college and grad school and said, wow, you're really smart. What I was the best at was just organizing things and putting things in a meaningful context. That takes us to our next tip, which is to emphasize deep processing. Again, think about the meaning. What are you trying to take away from this? What's the take-home message? That's easy in psychology. Almost everything we talk about in this course is hopefully something that matters to you in some way or can help you in some way. So try to figure out what the deep meaning is, and then you don't really have to practice it as much because it matters to you. Finally, test yourself. Again, you can read something, you can practice it, but you do not know how much you retain unless you practice it. It kills me to not see people working with those practice questions. I create them for a reason. They're very similar to the final exam questions, and I never understand why someone would take the final exam without having looked at the practice questions, and it happens a lot. It's terrifying and disturbing. But the only way you know what you've learned is to test yourself. When you take driver's ed, they don't just give you the keys once you complete the course. They want to make sure you've learned enough to not kill us all on the road. So again, just test yourself. Try to figure out what you know. You might figure out that you learned it all very well. Congratulations. You might figure out that you didn't learn it at all. So go back and learn it some more. Testing yourself and going back to practice is really the best way to improve your memory. So I hope that wasn't too preachy. I'm far from a study expert, but those tips helped me. Research really supports those tips, so I hope that you find them effective in this course and outside of this course.